Hi, I'm Chris Erdmann. As mentioned before, I'm at the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I'm wearing an open science hat. I'm the open science person at Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I've lived in this community for a while, in the open science community. I've worn a lot of hats over my life, but it'd be great to talk to some of you about open science, so come find me. But I just want to give this overarching view of what impact means to Michael J. Fox Foundation. Of course, we're here because of Michael J. Fox and his leadership. And one of the things that really, he's pushed for is this: we're here to find a cure for Parkinson's as fast as we can. And that really is aggressive funding program across. And it's really daunting what we're involved with across the process and bringing people together to really address this challenge. And just to give you, I included a link, and actually I tweeted these slides, so I know I'm link heavy, so you can view these links later. But we have an Our Impact page, and just to give you a little bit of taste of our impact, one of our prized projects is the PPMI, the Parkinson's Progression Marker Initiative. Really led to a new way to sort of to look for Parkinson's. To early in the process, we actually have a lot of news stories about this recently, and really looking at how we can track that early on in the process. The other thing is we're involved in government, so we are involved in this national plan to end Parkinson's, and at the local level as well. And I've been involved with communities, so we're sort of led. We have a group of people living with Parkinson's. We have actually people in our organization living with it, and it's been interesting. It's been really eye-opening to listen to them and really work with them too, our community. So impact is really broad. I'm not doing it justice. There are a lot of things that we're working on, but I'm here to sort of focus on the open science aspect, and the story really begins in 2020, where we launched our open access policy. This is before my time in the organization. But it was really forward-thinking. Our leadership was, really looking ahead and saying our research should be open. But also, one of the things I've heard is that reproducibility and all the sort of aspects of that are important. So, really enabling that, and also, looking to our researchers to start sharing all the supporting aspects of our research. We don't live in a bubble. We live in the context of what's happening right now. And one of the places I live is UNESCO. UNESCO has working groups on open science. I think their definition is really the one I hold on to, because it talks about inclusion, but also that the open aspects, collaboration and sharing are key. And then we've talked about sort of that connection to society and looking beyond the traditional. But I also want to highlight, so we're involved, I've been personally involved with TOPS, the Transform to Open Science Initiative through NASA, and they're developing curriculum. They're doing a lot with the community, inspiring change as far as open science. NASA's name is pretty big, and this has a lot of weight. But also, they've inspired the White House, along with other agencies, to really start addressing open science. And we heard some of that earlier on about some of the policies coming through, or just some of the memos and other things like that. But NIH also, the data management sharing plan is really fundamental to what we're doing too. So we live in that context of what we're looking at as a funder. This is just a brief overview of the open access publication policy. Really maybe no surprises there of driving open access, but also encouraging preprints. We heard about that earlier, and also the outputs. So data. Joshua has actually gave early warning sign about what we're going to talk about here, but data is really fundamental. Doing a lot of work on that front in code and in protocols and other aspects. And working on the acknowledgement aspect too of how we're acknowledged in publications with other research outputs. And we do have a central service that helps with APCs. I'm told by researchers at Michael J. Fox that this is actually one of the most helpful visualizations, because open science is really abstract. And when they look at this, they can see it really is like all these different connections to various things. This is older visualization or older taxonomy. Foster started a while back. So things like open hardware are missing, or notebooks, or other things like that. But it really gives you this bird's eye view of like all the things that we're trying to link to and make just more discoverable, lead to a more complete picture of our research. And so that's the context I come in. I joined the organization in October, and they asked me, okay, make sense of this open science space for us. We have this open access policy. We really need to understand how well we're doing, how we can do better, and what is sort of that map of open science look like? What's our strategy for that? And one of the things I did was use an open tool called Open Refine, and really used all the open data available to us. It's actually published to GoFair US. The documentation on how to do this is all there. That's really great to work for an organization that said, yeah, put it out there. Put how we did this out there for others to sort of take advantage of. And some of the things we found actually kind of align with some of our other funder friends, is that we found that 76% of our acknowledged works were OA in different forms. That can get murky. One of the other earlier presentations from Delta was, I was thinking, well, what are the underlying types involved in that data? This data can get really murky, but we focused a good deal on articles, of course. The other thing is 19% of our works had this Michael J. Fox Foundation acknowledgement. That is low. That's hurting us as far as discovery. That was a point that we, later on you'll hear that we focused on. 30% of our works were with preprint links. We encourage preprints, and this is actually a place where we'll actually look at improving those linkages. And I guess this speaks to what Joshua was talking about earlier, is that we found that sort of 52% of our articles had availability statements. I don't call it data, it's really availability of other research outputs. Generically call it availability statements, but you can see some of the trends you often hear. 21% had data available upon request. So at least we had the heading of availability statement, but there's more work to be done. There was direction to supplemental information, which could get a little bit confusing to researchers. We obviously in the FAIR outlook, the findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable outlook, it's really about directing, to the data, to the software with DOIs and other things like that. And then, the other 17% had HTTP links, so direct links, probably not, probably links to a home page or something like that. So we had a lot of work to do there. This is still very, a place that there's a lot of work to be done. We also had some data, but probably shouldn't share it because it was still incomplete, but it led us in directions of doing more work around RIDs, research IDs, and protocols as well. But sort of the overarching strategy I mentioned, right now I'm working on, for the organization, landscape analysis. You saw some of that, but also that mapping the open science space. It's incredibly difficult for an organization that doesn't live in it, or others, to see what does this look like, map it out and really make sense of it. Like how can we move strategically? And then as far as like being clear with our guidance, our outreach policies, I want to emphasize machine readability. Our language is very like should, asking you to do this, or recommend. We should really get to a point where this is machine readable and clear, so that this funder, requires, recommends, so that we can do this in a more systematic fashion. So that's what we're working towards too, and automated compliance monitoring and contributing. I think this is key. We heard about this before, about funders being interested in monitoring the data. Well, we want to contribute back to the graph. We want to contribute back to the ecosystem. If we're gathering all this information, it doesn't make sense for us just to have a dashboard. That information needs to be back in the system for others to take advantage of. So that's a key part of what we're driving towards as well. And impact means, public access, reducing barriers to our research, just having a more complete picture of reuse. I already showed you before the data reuse side of things needs a lot of work, and that could really, benefit us if we had a clearer picture. If you queried the sources where researchers should be citing their data, it's still very minimal, like really getting that insight in pursuing and supporting what we see from that insight will be helpful. And the reproducibility, I mentioned that, like just supporting all these different aspects of open science. But open science is a journey, so we have to start in places and move to the next thing, move to the, we're focused on particular aspects. Oh, and also, just to remind you, Parkinson's research. We're as long as we're furthering that's also pretty, central. But yeah, where we're focusing is funder information. Hopefully working with Crossref soon in improving that data. OA Switchboard is another one I hope is on all of your radar. This will help us dramatically with tracking our funder-related information. They're actually meeting at Cold Spring Harbor this week. And then the other thing is, again, making sense of all these sort of different ways to share the open material. So linking to the preprints, we have a channel on bioRxiv for Michael J. Fox Foundation. Preprints have been extremely helpful for our organization. I'm involved with all those conversations with the researchers, and I see them sharing preprints constantly because they're accessible. You get access to the research quickly. And we're also trying to tie in all these other aspects like the author manuscripts and also what we're paying for through the APCs. And this is just to illustrate, this is actually a good example. I had a data available upon request example, but this one comes from eLife, and it's beginnings of what we're looking for in how to share your data and software. You have the software being cited, you have the data being cited, it's in DOIs. That's one of the things that was key in our sort of landscape analysis is that identifiers are key to all this. And then, really, the availability statement, we can sort of templatize that nowadays with, if you're using sort of the PID, the persistent identifier infrastructure, we can sort of automate that as well to make it easier for researchers. But eLife is a really good example. And then just the near term and long term, I mentioned that we're looking at RIDs, looking at protocols, trials maybe a little bit more long term. But I really wanted to emphasize too, like that project identifiers, no one really knows about. There's a project called RAID. And this will be fundamentally important, I think, to research moving forward. So I'm part of that group. I'm a little bit biased, but I included a picture from the RAID group because I really wanted to emphasize that it takes all of us to work on this together. These are people from across the spectrum in different places that we can all work together to improve the impact of our research. And so just wanted to emphasize that. And there is actually a RAID webinar coming up with GoFair US if you wanted to search for that and learn more. So anyways, you can find me there. And also we had an open science session with NASA and NIH recently where you can just get a deeper dive into all this information. So thank you.